In this forecast, all modes of severe weather, including the potential for tornadoes, does exist in the Midwest today and tomorrow. A pattern change may bring more severe weather next week, and Tropical Storm Fiona may rapidly strengthen the Caribbean. All of that and more is coming right up. Let's begin with that severe weather potential for today. There is two areas to watch for very closely later this afternoon. Beginning with areas in Iowa near Omaha as well as Des Moines, the potential for severe weather does exist here, with our main concerns being damaging winds, large to maybe even a little bit of very large hail, and potentially an isolated tornado. Now, the greatest tornado potential this afternoon will be back up in Minnesota, so areas like St. Cloud, Fergus Falls, Brainerd, as well as Park Rapids, Sandstone have the best potential for a couple tornadoes later this afternoon into the evening hours due to a stronger low-level jet and as well as more low-level shear in this region. Otherwise, damaging winds and large hail will also be concerns across this region. Now, taking a look at the future radar across Iowa, beginning with about 12 to 1 o'clock this afternoon, we do have an area of a complex really of just some scattered showers and a few storms that are rolling across southern Iowa. That will continue over the next few hours, even into the early afternoon hours. But the bigger concern will be this evening, most likely beginning around 6 or 7 o'clock tonight. We'll begin to see some showers and storms fire up across areas from Mason City back through Des Moines for the potential again for damaging winds, some large hail, and maybe an isolated tornado threat embedded in there. Since these storms will not be overly organized, I don't expect the greatest tornado potential to be here today. I think the best chance will again be back up in Minnesota. More on that here in just a moment. By midnight to 1 in the morning, storms will continue, especially south of Des Moines. We could very well see some isolated flash flooding, as these storms are likely going to probably stay fairly stationary in these areas until they eventually move out going into the overnight hours, and eventually going into Sunday morning, a much drier look around Iowa. Now, taking a look at the severe weather potential across Minnesota, storms will likely fire up later this afternoon and closer to the evening hours. So by 5 o'clock, you can begin to see some discrete cells beginning to develop. Now, this is an area of concern, mainly due to the fact, again, there's going to be a pretty strong low-level jet, and we have a lot of low-level shear in this area. So we have to watch this area very closely this evening. By 6 o'clock, you can begin to see very well-shaped storms here across areas north of St. Cloud. Again, fairly rural regions, but if you're anywhere in northern or central Minnesota, big heads up for you. You might see some pretty strong to severe storms tonight. By 9 to 10 o'clock, we'll begin to see those storms slowly march out to the east and northeast, maybe a storm or two near Minneapolis, but other than that, I think that potential does stay low across those regions tonight. Eventually going into the overnight hours, most of the shower and storm activity does clear, and going into Monday and as well as Sunday, much drier conditions expected there. Now, the severe weather potential shifts further to the east going into Sunday. That includes a large portion of the Midwest from Chicago through Milwaukee, Saginaw, even in Michigan is included in this. Eventually, Davenport, Des Moines, again included tomorrow, and the potential for all modes of severe weather with damaging winds and large hail being big concerns. But again, a few tornadoes also may be possible tomorrow, especially in areas in central and western Illinois, back into southeastern Iowa, and northeastern Missouri have a good chance for severe weather tomorrow. Now, taking a look at the future radar, beginning with about 1 to 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, we may have a little complex of storms near Champaign, back through areas in western and central Indiana. Eventually, by about 4 to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, a lot more storm activity will start to develop. Again, there's a big stretch of an area where we very well will begin to see some storm development. By 6 to 7 o'clock, you can see big clusters of storms heading through areas near Springfield and Champaign, Illinois. Eventually, by about 8 to 9 o'clock, a lot more storm activity begins to blow up. Again, a lot of moisture as well in this area. Eventually, by 10 to 11 o'clock, again, a lot of storm activity across a large area, again, from Iowa back through Indiana, and maybe even into Kentucky, going into about 11 to 12 o'clock. Eventually, going into the overnight hours, most of that shower and storm activity will shift down to the south. Most of the rain activity will basically not be severe, so we won't see a whole lot of severe weather after about midnight. But again, make sure you're monitoring that severe weather potential closely, because we very well may see a couple of storms with damaging winds, large hail, and again, a couple of tornadoes not out of the question. Here's a look at the jet stream, by the way. A huge difference is coming next week. We have a big pattern change coming. Here's a look at your jet stream, and a low pressure system going to be centered right off the coast of California. Those in California are going to see some beneficial rain over the next 48 hours, and also a high pressure ridge that is centered down in the southern plains, keeping those areas dry. But eventually going to next week, late next week specifically, a big dip in the jet stream is going to be coming towards New England. That may bring a pretty significant cool down. Not just that, but maybe some showers and storms. Severe weather definitely not out of the question. Eventually going to next week, and a lot of uncertainty from from there, but we may see some more storm activity going into early the following week. So another area to watch as we go closer to the end of the month. There is also a chance for severe weather going into Monday for areas in the northeast from Ohio back through New York. Damaging winds, some isolated large hail, and maybe an isolated brief tornado may occur, but otherwise fairly low-end threats as of right now. Now let's take a look at the tropics. We have Tropical Storm Fiona, which is expected to rapidly intensify as it moves towards areas like Puerto Rico and as well as the Dominican Republic. There is an insane amount of convection this morning with this storm. It is much more organized than yesterday. Yesterday, it was getting ripped apart by shear, and the following day before that, but it has become a lot more organized. Now, what's going to happen? Well, I do think this is going to become a hurricane and maybe even a major hurricane, but first off, it will continue probably as a tropical storm, I would say, for the next 12 hours. It may become a hurricane as early as later tonight or tomorrow morning. That's not out of the question. But going into potentially Monday, the National Hurricane Center does mention it will probably be a hurricane by early Monday. If not, it might be earlier than that, as it is in open waters in a very favorable environment now. Eventually going closer to Tuesday and Wednesday, it starts to move off toward the Bahamas. From there, there is still a pretty wide area of uncertainty, but as of right now, Florida does not seem like it'll be directly impacted by this by any means, but it will likely become a major hurricane somewhere out here going into about Thursday or Friday, as long as it doesn't have too many issues getting through the island. So we'll have to watch that closely. Most computer models are keeping this well to the east of the United States right now. Things could change, but as of right now, very good signs right now. And eventually going over the next several days, again, a lot of computer models are actually starting to bring this to a major hurricane as early as only 2 days from now. So this will be a system to watch for very closely. Again, make sure that you are prepared if you're in the Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic area, Haiti, or the Bahamas, because it will be definitely a very active next few days across those areas. Make sure to like button down below, subscribe if you've not already. This forecast is brought to you by Platinum Contracting and Alden's Repair.